Hello everyone, and welcome to the second half of our live at 5 walk around the you can scroll back on YouTube or on Facebook to see the earlier walk where we saw Cranbrook School, the Cranbrook Union Windmill, and the birthplace of Henry Wood Booth, as well as the old copper shop where the Booth family worked until they immigrated in 1844. Now that copper kettle is interesting because if you know Cranbrook House well, when the Booth family came back in 1902 to their family, they purchased a version of that very copper tea kettle. And so we have in our collection in Michigan a similar kettle, though on a much smaller scale. And that was in 1901 when they made that purchase. They basically went around town, Henry Wood Booth sort of leading the charge, saying, "Do you have any copper made by my father or grandfather? Do you have any copper made by my father or grandfather?" And we've been able to, through Ancestry.com, as well as the village records here at the museum, the town records at the museum, figured out who our copper kettle was made for, their wedding, their occupation, all sorts of exciting features and facts about the two copper kettles. Let's see. Apparently the center of town has a pretty poor cell service, so I appreciate everyone's patience as we try and broadcast from Cranbrook to Cranbrook. I'm here at the intersection of High Street and Stone Street. We have come to the very middle of the town, and you can see here that is pretty much the limit of historic Cranbrook. Now there are new housing estates and new development that have taken place on the outskirts of town. There's even a modern grocery store, pretty substantial, that's behind these buildings. But this view right here is unchanged from several centuries of Cranbrook's history, including the George Hotel. I've spent the last 3 days staying in this beautiful room. This is the hotel that Queen Elizabeth stayed at in 1573. When she came into town, she was joined, of course, by her court, but she was welcomed by the good merchants of Cranbrook, who made their wealth in the cloth industry by laying broadcloth on the streets of Cranbrook. So I've mentioned already, I'm a little disappointed no one laid broadcloth on the streets for my arrival, but that's okay. In 1901, George and Ellen Booth and Henry Wood Booth also stayed in the George Hotel. So it is the place to stay, to eat, to enjoy yourself while here in Cranbrook. Now, also at this intersection is this information board, which is a recreation of the medieval market stall that would have been here in Elizabethan times. This is part of the United Kingdom's millennial project, so this was only built in 2000, but it's inspired by the medieval market stall. And then behind it is the parish council, so local government here in a pretty great Victorian pile in the arts and crafts movement, much more ornate than most of the architecture here in Cranbrook, but calling back to this sort of ancient town. And then right at the top of the hill is the oldest and most important structure in Cranbrook, Kent, St. Dunstan's Parish Church. And so St. Dunstan is the patron saint of arts and crafts. He's also sort of the founding figure, the leading figure of the Anglican Church of British culture. He was leading both God and religion. And this site has been home to a religious structure for at least 1,000 years. And this religious structure since the 1300s. A more modern edition is up at the top. That's only from the 1400s at the top of the church. What I thought was cool as I moved through the church and read about it is that, excuse me, this is one of the only churches in Kent, one of the only medieval churches to have a clock on it, not a regular feature of a church tower. And the clock was added in the 1750s, so it's Georgian style. The Father Time figure up at the top is a really recent recreation in fiberglass. But the clock works that are hanging down in the tower were developed a unique system. It's a week-long movement, and it is the test clock for Big Ben in London. And so the Royal Astronomer Society came out and in the 1850s installed the clockworks here to see if it would work. It was a test case before being installed at the Houses of Parliament a couple of years later. Now, when the Booths were living here, they were religious dissenters, so they did not attend St. Dunstan's Church. But when Harriet Wood Booth dies in 1841, she is buried here without a gravestone. And so part of the Booths' trips to come back to learn about their family history also included the construction of a gravestone for Henry Wood Booth's mother, Harriet Wood, who died on Christmas Eve of 1841. And so we can see here Harriet Wood's tombstone. And so you can see it here. It says, in memory of Harriet Wood, the beloved wife of Henry Gough Booth, was buried in this spot in 1841, aged 28 years. Now, if you follow it all the way down, it says, erected 1906 by their son, Henry Wood Booth of Detroit, Michigan, USA, born in Cranbrook, 1837. So, this is the Booth family plot here at St. Dunstan's, the ancient parish church. Now, I won't be able to take us into the church, but you can see some of my earlier tours there on Instagram. In the future, I'll be posting those. Next, I think we'll just capture again this beautiful view. And I'm gonna stay on the public right of way to just show us a little bit more of the exterior of St. Dunstan's. To give you a sense, if you've been watching both Facebook videos, the Cranbrook School is straight ahead, and so we have made a pretty tight little U-shaped loop. The town is tiny, and so we have made it all the way back to the rear of Cranbrook School. And now here is the exterior of St. Dunstan's. And if you know a lot about Cranbrook educational community in Michigan, you'll know that many of these place names are also place names at Cranbrook community, including, of course, St. Dunstan's Chapel at Christ Church Cranbrook and St. Dunstan's Theater in St. Dunstan's Hall, the theater at Cranbrook. Now, as we move past the churchyard, we're seeing all the beautiful tombstones and monuments. And then here again is Cranbrook School at the rear, the main school administration building. These are the buildings that expanded with Cranbrook School in the 1950s and 60s. And then the main schoolhouse is here from the other side. And back to St. Dunstan's. Now, in Detroit, you might know the church Spirit of Hope, or Trinity Episcopal Church. That was a church that was built in 1893 on the corner of Trumbull and Maple, now Trumbull and Martin Luther King. It was built by James Edmund Scripps, whose daughter Ellen Scripps Booth is George Booth's wife and one of the co-founders of Cranbrook. And James Scripps, who was also from the south of England, was inspired to build in Detroit a church in this same style, in this medieval church Tudor style. And so much closer to home, without requiring an international flight, you can see some of this Tudor architecture. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning. What's going on?
We are on Facebook Live. Are you Cranbrook students?
Yeah, we are.
Yes. Say hello to the good people of Michigan.
Hello. Hey, Michigan.
Yeah.
How are you?
Do you like living in Cranbrook?
Yeah,
It's lovely. It's a really nice place.
And do you like Cranbrook School?
I love
it's a
Cranbrook
great school, yeah.
Good.
There's a sushi restaurant opening. Do you want to go down there?
Yes, we'll get all the heights, all the sights. Thank you. Good to see you.
Can I come with you?
No, you can't.
I I can't.
I have to talk to the people. I have to educate them. Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Goodbye. We've had a lot of fun talking to the students. I've been giving some lectures, conversations, visiting them in their classrooms, and they are all enthusiastic about the two Cranbrooks. Now, I think because the church is actually already open, we will respectfully step inside. I spoke with the organist yesterday, and he was happy to have us sharing the church with you all. Hopefully, service will exist inside. And what really makes St. Dunstan unique among churches here in England and in Kent is all of the light. And so there would have been stained glass windows here prior to the English Reformation. The sculptures were knocked off, the stained glass was removed, and the church became a much plainer place in the English Reformation. And then the Victorians came back and added in the sculptures and memorials and stained glass that you see. But one of the pieces that surprised me the most, not being a sort of expert of English history or Anglicanism, are the pagan figures that are behind me. And these are actually the oldest sculptures in the church, some of the oldest parts of the church. And these come from the former ceiling of the church that eventually collapsed. But these are from the late 13th century, and they show designs of pagan forest creatures. And the church points out that when the church was built, Cranbrook was surrounded by dense forest, the Weald, and that pagan simply means pre-Christian rather than anti-Christian. And so the church attempted to incorporate pagan details into its Christian architecture. And then up above, we see the inside of the tower, which has bells that you play through chain ringing. And then throughout the church are different memorials and fountains. This is a memorial to the painter Thomas Webster, who was the head of the Cranbrook artist colony in the mid-19th century. And then, very unusual, one of only two Anglican churches to have one, is a full immersion baptismal font. And as someone who grew up Southern Baptist, I'm very familiar with these dunk tanks, if you will. However, why is there one here in a Church of England? The idea was that there were so many religious dissenters in Cranbrook. If they could just bring some of the traditions of the dissenters into the Anglican Church, you could bring everyone in the village back to the Anglican communion. And so the head of the church at that time thought, well, there's nothing in the Bible that says baptism is a sprinkle. Why can't baptism be full immersion? That will bring everyone back into the fold. It says on the sign that it was only used one time. It was not a successful idea. And then this chapel, which is just so beautiful with all of the clear windows. And then leading into the choir and choir chancel, which has a tribute to Queen Victoria here. And I'm sure that the quality on your screen is suffering in person. This window is so beautiful. It is made by Powell and Sons, also known as the Whitefriars Stained Glass Company. And Powell and Sons are Whitefriars. It's the same London-based stained glass manufacturers who made the women's window at Christ Church, Cranbrook. And so another Cranbrook connection. This window from 1906, ours at Christ Church, Cranbrook from 1929. And this part of the church is actually the oldest, and you can tell that because it has the pointed Gothic arches. And then in the main nave of the church, they're squatter, they're lower arches. And so that's just the difference of a century in English architecture. Now, I want to head out and just take us back to the market town while I'm still connected and broadcasting to you. If you've enjoyed this two-part walking tour of the market town of Cranbrook, Kent, I hope that you'll consider supporting us in our work at the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research. The whole reason that I'm here on this trip, tracing the footsteps of our founding family from Cranbrook in North America to Cranbrook in Kent, is in preparation for an event on Saturday, May 20th, a house party at 2 Cranbrooks. That's the main fundraiser and educational evening that supports the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research and Cranbrook Archives. So if you're able and available, we'd love to have you support us and join us at a house party at 2 Cranbrooks on May 20th. If you can't make it, we'd love to have your support just in generally to supporting the research and telling the story of the Cranbrook community all around the world. What George and Ellen Booth accomplished at Cranbrook in their establishing of 6 institutions of art, science, and education was really remarkable. And it's pretty amazing to see the town that their George's father and grandfather came from, that they left, and pretty poor people, immigrants to the New World, that in one generation the Booths could have become so successful and then give that success away to the future. And so if you're able to, we'd love to have your support. You can support us at center.cranbrook.edu/support, and you can find out more about the house party at 2 Cranbrooks on our website as well. I am very grateful to the support that's already been demonstrated by our committee, including Bobby and Stephen Polk and Ryan Polk, who have made this trip possible. So thank you to the Polks, who are not only chairing our event, House Party at 2 Cranbrooks, but made this trip happen. So thank you, thank you, thank you to the Polks, and thank you to the entire Cranbrook leadership team for allowing me to come out on this journey to the Kentish Weald, which I have learned is a forest. And so I'll leave you now with just a last view of the main high street here in Cranbrook, Kent. In the coming weeks, look for more information from me, more photos, more videos, more conversations with the fascinating people who make Cranbrook, Kent tick. And also stay tuned for a few more Live at 5s that are going to be themed to the 2 Cranbrooks. We have a lot more in store before our event on May 20th, and I look forward to sharing it with you all. I'm going to head on out of Cranbrook. This is my last task. I finally figured out a British SIM card. I am sorry that the video cut out and that the quality wasn't always great, but I hope that you've enjoyed learning more and seeing more. And again, there is a part 1 to this tour that is on Facebook or soon to be on YouTube. Until next time, everyone, I'm Kevin Adkisson, curator with the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research here in Cranbrook, Kent. And I look forward to seeing and speaking to you all again soon. Goodbye.